Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com, also video presentation. Draft Science here on YouTube. As you probably could just figure out for yourself. But anyway, comments. Alright, so this Kirkster or whatever name, person, another comment. As if this would resolve the subject, when we know the only thing that's going to resolve the subject is evidence. We need experimental evidence. So, in line with that, I have decided to attempt to solicit somebody to do this evidence thing. But I can't do it by myself. So, me alone asking them doesn't work. What we need is for more than just me to do the asking. You all have to beg them also to do these fundamental experiments. So the idea will be, let's see, maybe there's a way I can just cut and paste this into here. Yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, I believe that worked. All right, so here's a short list of people that both do experiments now and then and have a high-speed camera and have pretty high visibility. So my list is Steve Mould. Okay, does pretty serious videos. I mean, did the whole chain thing. I don't think his analysis was right, but so what? Does interesting in-depth videos, not too bad, all of that kind of crap. But yeah, it's shitty science, so what can I say? Veritasium is just an insane, douche. But whatever. That's life on planet Earth. Alpha Phoenix guy seems very passionate and interested and does lots of different kinds of experiments. Again, I don't really have a gripe with too much of what he's done, but the conclusions, again, I'm going to argue, not so much. Math science guy keeps trying. He was a former, worked for NASA. I don't know exactly in what position. His latest video on orbits was pretty bad in terms of talking about, again, gravity as if it's an equal force between the Earth and the Moon, and it's not equal at all. The Moon provides a little tiny bit of force. The Earth provides a gigantic amount of force. Anyway, Fermi Lab, they obviously should have the equipment to do these basic fundamental experiments for which all of their particle physics is based, this idea of kinetic energy. Thunderfoot definitely has the high-speed camera, does mostly chemistry experiments, but come on, this is physics. It's an elemental part of physics. Professor Dave explains, okay, I just can't, another person who just is so despicably full of himself. Oh, God, this whole last video where he celebrated his 10 years by showing us, look at all the money I've made off you morons. Yuck. All right, and then Bruce Yerney, again, science teacher, seems pretty sincere. Doesn't seem to be just in it for the bucks. But it's all juvenile, infantile, baby science. Let's shoot things into things. Let's do this showy, and keep the kids interested kind of bullshit, instead of actually getting to the actual science. So in his last video, he shoots an egg into a pumpkin and tells us how many joules of energy it is, the kinetic energy, blah, blah, blah. Same old bullshit. So anyway, they all have high-speed cameras, and yes, they're mostly all douches, but whatever, we have to get somebody to do the experiments that has the equipment to do the experiment. And it's only going to happen if you force science to do it. Science isn't going to do anything. They're not going to prove anything unless you force them to prove it. You have to say, show me now and then. You can't just let them tell you. You have to say, show me. Show me a quark. Show me something. Show me some reason why I should really believe in this. Instead of just saying, I accept. Yeah. So, the idea is, I'm going to write up some little paragraph of stuff just pointing out how this is a really important controversy, this MV versus momentum. It really should be made clear. The theory basically says, 5 times the motion, 25 times the energy. That's what the theory says. So whether I'm putting it in or taking it out, I have to put in 25 to create 5, and 5 creates 25. And there's just nothing No car crashes, no tug of wars, no anything showing us kinetic energy exists. Nothing really showing us that a bullet has 1,000 times the energy of the recoiling gun, that it can do 1,000 times more work, it can lift 1,000 times more horses, it can do something. No evidence. And you really should be able to produce that evidence. So produce it, please. Do this experiment for which ends all discussion. Prove it beyond reasonable suspicion or, or accusation of shenanigan or reasonable rejection. Okay, that's all we're looking for. Now, can't you, even all you haters, can't you jump on that bandwagon and say, yes, I'd like to see the experiments too. I'd like to see them actually prove it. You know, they don't need to, but I'd love to see them actually do it, just for the fun of it. So everybody should be willing. And so the idea will be, is I'll set a date, and we'll all email these people at that, one of these persons each time, each, like every 2 weeks or something. And see what happens. See if we can get one of them to man up, okay, and do what's required, which is actually prove what they claim to be already proven. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So if anybody has anybody that they think I should add to the list, I'd appreciate it. I mean, there is that smarter everyday guy, but he's like some kind of Christian or something. So it's like, you almost don't want to go anywhere near that kind of mush. Christian scientist just isn't a good idea. All right, so anyway, so that's in the background. So if anybody has anybody to add to the list, let me know, and we'll add them and such. See if we can get one of them to say, yes, I get it. It should be done. All right, so here's this jerk. Okay, here's his email. All right, you can just answer one question. After the collision, if the one mass is going to the left at 25 velocity and three masses going to the right 25 velocity, what is the velocity of the center of mass? So he thinks a system that really doesn't have anything connecting the objects, there's no force connecting them, is somehow a system, and therefore has a center of mass. When the whole point is, no, it doesn't. So why do you think the energy has to go in some direction? Because there's nothing forcing anything to be conservative. There's no gravity, there's no force binding the objects. So they're really independent. No springs, no rubber bands. Well, without springs and rubber bands, it doesn't work. Just two objects moving in opposite directions. Well, there is no center of mass if there's nothing binding the objects to each other. It should be clear that it can't be 25 like it was before the collision. So again, you say it's clear. I'm saying F you. If you actually did the experiment properly, okay, that's what you're going to get, because that's the conservation of the momentum. You can't not conserve the momentum. As a system, the energy goes in this way. The whole system has to move this way. And all you've really done is taken a one mass and turned it into a four mass. That's all you're doing. You're taking a one mass, turning it into a four mass, and that's what the system's going to have, is the motion of the four mass, which is going to be 1/4 of the velocity. Because that is the velocity of the three mass, and the one mass going in the opposite direction. You do the math. You do it, okay? I don't think your math has any conceptual rationality. There's no such thing as a negative motion, in my opinion. So, what math do you want me to do? Again, I've told you MV. I just gave you the math. If I have a one mass moving 4, okay, and then I have a four mass moving 1, I have conserved the momentum, and it all makes sense. So what math do I need to do? You can probably see that velocity is 12.5. No, I don't see it at all. So that's, you say so. So that's against what Newton said. If the velocities are 50 in the opposite direction after the collision, the center of mass has a velocity of 25. Says you. There's no proof of that. There's no center of mass. All right, so again, I'll show you what we're arguing first, then I'll show you a video of how the experiment actually needs to be done. All right, a Professor Lewin video. All right, so we can get rid of this. All right, so we're still arguing about object 3 to 1. Okay, and you put this in with 100, and they say this leaves with 150. Okay, and this comes back with 50. So that's their ludicrous theory, that I put 100 in. Focus. Always something. Should be better. All right, so yeah, so I can create free momentum in a direction, which doesn't make any sense. None of that makes any sense. So my simple argument is if obviously if I have this object is the same size mass, well then I put 100 in and I get 100 out. And my argument is if I make this mass a little bit bigger, you know, just 10% bigger, okay, I still have the same only 100. So yes, now I'm going to get a tiny bit of a reflection, you know, 10 or whatever, and I'm only going to get 90 in here. You know, it's going to be 90, 10. And then if I make this much bigger, okay, then it's going to be, I'm going to get all of the reflection here. I'm going to get 100 back, and I'm going to have 0 here. See, they're claiming when this doesn't move, that somehow it moved the whole Earth. So they're saying that the experiment will work just as well if I put wheels on this giant thing and then put it on top of something with wheels. And so, because they're claiming the whole Earth moves. Well, my argument is, okay, well, I can put wheels on the connection between the object and the Earth. So I can put the whole Newton's cradle on wheels. And if the whole Newton's cradle moves, I'm going to argue this is not going to reflect with 100 anymore. It's not going to happen. If you move the Earth, that's motion, that's used up your energy. You can't use the energy twice. You can't move the Earth this way and get all your energy back. You can't get all your energy back. I mean, it's a pendulum, for fuck's sake. I mean, if I get all my energy back, then I can just keep hitting things over and over and over again. So the whole thing is ludicrous. He won't counter this argument. Instead wants to keep playing with abstractions when I'm giving you a real simple experimental mechanism and saying, see? So he won't explain how the perpetual motion machine can't be made. He'll just tell me to go make it, you know, instead of just explaining why it won't work, you know, by his theory. What physics he has that says this doesn't, you know, somehow this doesn't get 200, this doesn't come back with 100, when that's exactly what the theory says. So I get all of my energy back, and I can just keep producing 200 momentum forever and ever and ever. And that's the theoretical implication of the nonsense. And he won't deal with any of that. So there's not much you can do with these arguments. So again, it's not a system. So the simple argument against what you're saying, asshole, okay, is that I can have the two scenarios, right? I can hit it and all the energy goes this way, right? So all the energy goes here. It just transfers from this to this. Or I can have a circumstance where I make this big enough where all the energy reflects, and I get 100 back. And that's all I get. I get 0 here, and I get 100 back. So there's no center of mass here. Obviously, all the motion was going this way in one experiment, and all the motion is going to come back this way in the other experiment. So where's the center of mass have anything to do with it? The center of mass is going to be moving in the opposite direction. It's not going to stay in the same direction. It's not going to move in any direction. It's just going to reflect the motion. So whatever you want to call some sort of center of mass is obviously going to get expanded in the sense that this is going to get further and further and further away from that. And it's going to keep incrementally moving the center of mass further and further over. So what's the argument? You know, we're almost back to a lever argument. You know, where you haven't made a single argument explaining how the simple lever demonstration, you know, the oscillator that oscillates perfectly, okay, with a 4 mass going 1 velocity, all right, against a 1 mass going 4 velocity. That equals that. A 1 mass going 4 velocity equals a 4 mass going 1 velocity. Demonstrating that, you know, your theory that a 1 mass going 2 velocity is all I need. And if I did a 1 mass with a 2 velocity on the lever, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to get an oscillator. I'm going to get just something that's going to swing down. That'll be the end of it. The balance will say they don't balance. I can't conserve the energy. So, you know. So what we really want are these, just do these simple experiments. Have somebody do this lever experiment and demonstrate, yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. And then do the tug of war between the 10-ton, or let's just say the 1 mass going 5 and the 5 mass going 1. Because the 1 mass going 5 is supposed to be 25 times more powerful. Now, momentum says they're dead even. Momentum says they'll do exactly the same amount of work. And their theory says one of them does 25 times the work. Now that seems a simple enough experiment, so show me. Alright, to the video now. Okay, I'll go find that. Okay, so this is what a system looks like. Now I wish it was 1 to 3, so it didn't do 1 to 3. Alright, so it's just 1 to 1. But you can see that it oscillates and the motion goes into it. So whatever motion he's putting in, basically, all right, now see the cheat is here, he's going to push it. What he ideally should do, okay, let me see if I can find the video or use the mouse. That would be the way to do it. Okay, if he took this cart, okay, and just had another cart hit it elastically, so the energy goes into this cart, then he knows exactly how much energy he put in. And you'll find that this will move, this whole system will end up moving at half that speed because you've gotten twice the mass. And so the momentum, again, will be perfectly conserved. And I'm sure that's what the results would be if they would do these experiments with a little tiny bit of imagination. But unfortunately, they're not for the purpose of showing physics. They're for the purpose of propagandizing for the argument of the day. So whatever the argument of the day is, they contrive an experiment to demonstrate that. All right. So, I mean, this is lecture 15. Lecture 16 basically has center of mass in it again, but it has nothing to do with the center of mass. So this is part of the bullshit. They deal with momentum one day and then kinetic energy the next day, because they can't deal with both of them in the same day, because the experiments basically show a complete destruction of one or the other. All right. So this is what a system looks like. So this has a center of mass. Banging things into each other, car crashes really don't have a closed center of mass, especially in space, because the things fly off forever, so to speak.
There we go. You see how complicated this motion is? All
right, so he's saying that if I did this with a 1 and a 3 mass, and I put in 100 energy, that somehow it'll move at half the velocity. So even though it's 4 times the mass, the total mass is 4, that somehow the 4 mass will move at half the velocity, and I will gain free momentum. So the whole system will move as if I can just put 100 in and I can get 400 out. Well, not 400, 200. So I put 100 in, I get 200, a big object moving with 200. And that won't happen. It will move at 1/4 the velocity because it's 4 times the mass. So it's that simple. So this is the experiment that needs to be done, though, to prove the point of what the center of mass will do. So if you want to do a center of mass experiment, you have to have some way to tie these objects to each other. There has to be some force, in this case a spring, that's connecting the two objects so their motion is always conserved in the system. It always stays in there and they oscillate.
Can you see that the center of mass is moving very uniformly, or can you not see that?
Right, so the whole system is moving at, if it was a 3 to 1, it would be 1/4 the initial speed, is my argument. And he's not going to produce any evidence to demonstrate anything else would be true, because anything else would mean you made free energy again. You put 100 in and you get 200 out. That's garbage. That's nonsense as physics, frankly. It breaks all the fundamental elemental rules. It just can't happen. You can't make free energy, or we would have free energy. I mean, damn, I mean, how many times does that have to be explained? You have actually literally 1 million people out there trying to make free energy. And you're saying none of them can figure out that, oh, this video says you can just double your momentum really easy. And they can't figure out how to do it? Come on. No, they can figure out how to do it, and it doesn't work because the physics is wrong. Damn. All right. I guess we'll go back to the comments and such. All right. So back to another one of these, I don't know, people, whatever. Do the force-based act like an ether? So this obsession with ether, to me, indicates influence of religion. I don't know why people would be obsessed with with ethers unless they think they want to create some sort of biblical notion of creation, some sort of flat earth kind of agenda where we need to go back thousands of years and believe in gooey bullshit. So yeah, you know. So what's your definition of this? What is this ether made out of, right? We know that I could say the word jello, right? But we know that jello is made out of atoms. And it might even be very different atoms, you know, banana and grapes and carrots or whatever the fuck you put in your jello. And so it might be all kinds of different things in this thing called the jello, the ether. So what the fuck is your ether? How do you even imagine a continuous substance that somehow is incompressible? I don't even know how to make any sense out of this continuous substance that's somehow uncompressible, but somehow it has waves in it. I mean, none of it can make any sense. It isn't an ocean. We know that. We know oceans have a surface that's exposed to gravity, right? So we know why waves can be created. But if I seal it up inside a jar and I take away all the air, you know, so it just can't move into the atmosphere, can't compress air, I'm going to be in big trouble trying to, you know, create these wavy things, you know, because it doesn't compress very well. You know, so you have to just, you know, what is this stupid ethery crap? If it's sand, that's not going to work because the little bits have to somehow be stuck to each other. So, you know, you're not... So you got my argument. Of course, no. Whatever. I don't even know what an ether is. It's a false premise to start with. Whatever the fuck ether is. So I can't say it's act like an ether. But if your definition of ether is, let's say, dominoes that are in one position and they're either down or up, I'd say no, it's nothing like that because that can't do straight lines in any direction. You know, that's very geometrical and limited. So there's no way you could have an infinite number of, you know, an infinite variety of directions. You'd be stuck with certain directions and other directions would be completely forbidden. So that doesn't work. But if you want to say it's a bunch of pool balls, and if I was to argue they aren't standing still, they're all jiggling and banging into each other, well, yeah, if that's what your definition of ether is, then yes, it's just like an ether. Fuckheads. All right. So, this Tom guy, very nice. Hello, Gary. Thank you for answering the questions. I just wanted to say I'm not trying to contradict or debate your theory. I just wanted to understand it and learn. Yes, well, I'm all for all that. So I'm just saying, fine. I don't have anything wrong with you posing questions. I just sort of making the point that I'm not going to answer questions that require supernatural knowledge to answer, okay, ones that are way beyond the scope of any detective that can do any work here. We can't do the kind of, you know, you have to stick to the technology that exists, you know, and if you don't have DNA and you don't have fingerprints, then you have to do a different kind of science than you're going to do if you do have those tools. So, you know, I don't know exactly. You know, it's fine to ask questions. I'm just saying fine. It's even fine to say, I don't understand how that's possible because it doesn't make any sense to me. That's fine. I was just saying that there's certain questions I don't think are even interesting. And I've sort of made it clear that all the cosmological, let's go find God somewhere questions, I find incredibly uninteresting. I just want to know how the physical stuff works. I don't care where the soda machine came from. I just want to understand how it works. You know, it plugs into the wall, electricity goes through the cord, and now it does stuff. And we're trying to decide how it does that. I press a button and a can pops out. We're just trying to figure out how that happens. That's all I care about. Who made the soda machine? I don't give a fuck. That's all I was trying to make clear. And I don't give a fuck for a good reason, because I've been on the internet for like 30 years and everybody wants to talk about this religious shit and wants to imagine that we have free will and that we're not machines and that we're going to a singularity and that we're going to wormhole somewhere and we're going to transhumanize and we're going to be brains floating in space going, oh God, where are the white women at? You know, what the fuck are they going to do? These little things floating, little sparks in space going, oh, I'm going to go, you know, bang that chick. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have a penis anymore. You know, what the fuck are you people even talking about? You're so full of shit. I'm sorry, not you necessarily. I'm just saying all of this fucking bullshit about creation and all this other wooey crap. I don't even understand why you give a fuck about a Big Bang. Especially when it has nothing to do with banging. Jesus. I wish you the best. Man, I have no idea what's going on. Wish you the best. Well, whatever. You said it twice. 2 different videos at least, so that's fine. But I wish my wishes would come true. You know, but so what can I say? You know, yeah. I wish the wishing worked. Yeah, I sure do wish that. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's part of why I'm so damn cynical is that this whole world runs on ideas that are complete fail. I hope. Oh, you really should. Oh, blah, blah. You know, and it's just such a useless pile of shit. You know, to have, you know, we have absolutely zero power to control anything, and everybody's just gung-ho for, let's sail right into the brick wall. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that what dumb animals do? They sail right into the brick wall. All right. Hey, Draft Physics, what do you think of CERN? I think it's a stupid name. And I think they're all a bunch of criminals in the sense they had ownership of the internet. I mean, all the domain names, the whole structure. And because they weren't getting rich enough, they decided to give it away to a bunch of capitalist fucking cores and destroy the whole mechanism and turn it into this disgusting private enterprise bullshit that now has domains. You have to pay $20 a year to own a domain name. It's ridiculous. You could buy lifetime ownership with like $10 10 years ago. I mean, you know, the whole thing is disgusting. That's not 10. It's more like 20. All right. CERN and the experiments there, it seems dangerous. They're smashing atoms. It's really not dangerous. And I can't understand the positive value of it. Well, there is no positive value because it's all based on mv, 1/2 mv squared. So they all have wrong values for every experiment they're doing. They're just throwing away the value of it because they've misidentified the real, actual mechanisms involved. And they've exaggerated how much energy's there, and therefore they've surmised that we must find other particles because there's a bunch of leftover energy. It must have been carried away by something, so they go and make up some bullshit particle that carried it away. What's your take on it? My take is they should first understand exactly how the machine works, and I don't think they understand whether they have neutrons in their device or protons in their device or ions in their device. I don't think they have any reason to think or draw conclusions that any of these experiments are anywhere near the purity that they think they are. So yes, the whole thing is a waste of money. They ought to do tug-of-war experiments. All right, so maybe I'll read this Superior Mind. It's just kind of irritating. Okay, this made me think about proton, neutron, electron distance and configurations and how those differences could emerge. The simplest explanation for why there are protons in the nucleus and electrons on the outside is that protons, the one thing physics might have gotten right, is that protons are just heavier. So they have the same profile. Magnets sort of prove that. Magnets, south magnets are just as strong as north magnets, kind of thing. So we know the profile must be the same. So they have the same size as charges, but they have different masses. So the protons are harder to move. You need more energy to move them. That's why they're stuck in the nucleus. And the electrons are easy to move. That is, they're easier to kick out. And so that's why they're not stuck in the nucleus. Only half of them are stuck in the nucleus, and the other half are configured around the atom's nucleus. So that's the simple explanation. It works. It might not be entirely true. That's true. It might not be the right answer, but it does work, and it's really simple. So I say, yeah, that's probably the game. For example, why do you have a neutron as an electron proton as... Why we have a neutron as an electron proton and a nearby proton, but other electrons are more distant. So again, it's just the fact that you have 2-to-1 relationship inside the nucleus. So the electrons are harder to capture. So whether the protons, it could be that there could be just less proton force in the universe, and therefore protons don't move as much. But that seems more complicated than just saying the protons are heavier and more spread apart from each other. One idea I had was that the reflections between the protons may be low enough with the electron in the middle due to either electron actually blocking more. So the idea that they behave differently doesn't really work, because we know charges behave exactly proportional. They both obey the inverse square law. They both have the same amount of charge, 1 unit of it. So you really can't play too much. You're not given a lot of latitude to pretend that one thing reflects more or some other kind of thing. Or perhaps there's just more force type electrons tend to reflect. So I don't know, you really haven't been following along, but there's two kinds. There's electron force and proton force. I mean, I've done the charge thing so many times. You mean you haven't watched the charge video? And thus they have driven further apart than protons are, until crossing a certain threshold of equilibrium, thus resulting in balanced geometric configurations you mentioned before. So again, the simple solution is protons are harder to move. Why are they harder to move? Okay, I'm just going to say the simple answer is they weigh more, just the way it is. I mean, the argument can be made that this universe is really 2 universes that flew into each other. One that's electron-based and one that's proton-based, and the two of them, dimensionally fell on top of each other. And that's why it has all of this action in it, something like that. And there's no rule saying that every time this configuration of energy is created that all the parts in it are exactly the same proportion. So let's say the dead electron or proton, let's say it was made out of dead force. That is, that somehow forces, if they hit each other exactly right on, head on, that they actually stop moving. And that's how you make an electron. So it's some kind of rare event. Well, let's say that rare event happened more, it has more time in the proton universe. And so the dead things would be heavier than they would be in the other universe where, that didn't happen as often. Something like that. So protons are just heavier because they're older or there's some other kind of thing. But again, this is really stretching to answer those questions. All we need to know is the protons, if we use the simple understanding that protons need more energy to be moved, then we can understand why they're stuck in the nucleus. All right, and that's all you need to know. And electrons are easier to move. That's why they're scattered on the outside, is because they're harder to capture, because they jump and they move too easy. A little bit of noise knocks electrons all over the place, where a little bit of noise doesn't bother the protons much. That kind of thing. But anyway, all right, thanks, but You do irritate me sometimes. Okay, so anyway. So I guess that's it. Alright, so I'll work on my little paragraph to email. And we'll see if you people can get on board and say, alright, as much as I hate your guts, I can't stand what you're saying, experiments are great. Science should be full of experiments to look at, and we should get some of these people that have the tools to do the experiments. These are the experiments need to be done. They got to quit playing with chains and quit playing with wind cars and all this other crap, and they need to do a really basic kinetic energy experiment and prove to us that a bullet has 1,000 times more capacity to move matter in the universe than the recoiling gun. That it's 1,000 times more heat it can create than the recoiling gun. We need that proof. And you should be able to support that mission to have that created as a proof. Prove that kinetic energy works. Now we know they can't fix the problem in space, so we know that the thrust problem, that they can't fix. They're never going to be able to prove that kinetic energy will land you on the moon, because it won't. It's just a fact that if you want to know how much your spaceship's going to move, you have to calculate the momentum. And the kinetic energy will be a useless number. It won't help you at all. And that's just such an absolute fact that I shouldn't even get an argument on that one. All right. Yeah, I just sit here and say, okay, come on. Well, people, you really should be able to deduce this all on your own. I shouldn't even almost have to explain it to you. I should just say, think about thrust and how ludicrous it is to calculate the kinetic energy of the thrust when you're not going to get an equal and opposite reaction in your spaceship. So calculating the kinetic energy won't tell you how fast your spaceship goes. The only thing that's going to tell you how fast your spaceship's going to go is calculating the momentum. That'll tell you exactly how much momentum your spaceship will have. That'll work every time. Kinetic energy won't work every time. That should be enough right there. Me saying that to an intelligent person who's taking this at all seriously, they should concede, yeah, that's a damn good argument. How the fuck can this kinetic energy thing be real if it can't move a spaceship? It can't be real energy. It can't mean anything. If it can't move a spaceship, it's garbage, nonsense, rubbish. Let's quit talking about it. Yes, it's silly. A dumb prehistoric idea. Okay, got to come up with some word for archaic. Okay, it's archaic, ignorant physics. Time to move on. Grow up. Be physics adults, not physics children. All right, enough said. So, till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot. I think that's all there is here. Is there something else I wanted to do? I don't think there's anything else I need to do in this video. So, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot.